Mike Brown, the former FEMA director.
Joining us here is the former FEMA director.
History, I think, was very unkind to you, my friend. Very unkind.
Mr. Brown, thanks for being with us.
This is Michael Brown Unplugged.
Welcome to this episode of Michael Brown Unplugged. Glad to have you with me. Let's get started right away. I've always thought and I've always believed that liberals and those on the left side of the political spectrum always try to paint conservatives somehow as mean, evil, that we are, just mean and evil. I think those are the two best words that if you were to ask somebody that has been indoctrinated to leftist Marxist politics of the current Democrat Party, they would say that those who are conservative and libertarian, those who believe in the supremacy of the individual over the collective, that we are cold, we are heartless, that we don't like people. And I think that's because we believe that all men are created equal and that whatever God-given talents you have, that it is up to you. It is up to you to exploit and to use those talents to the best of your ability, and that if you strive hard enough, that you can be anything that you want to be. And if you fail to do that, it is not the responsibility of the collective, i.e. the government, to step in and take care of you. Now, I've always believed that we should have some sort of, safety net, a social safety net that says those who, beyond any control that they have, in other words, someone who is born severely deformed, someone who is born with a serious mental defect, or someone because of an injury, something that they have no insurance. I mean, I can think of really hardcore, really bad examples of where I think individuals through government, through a social safety net, should be provided some sort of support and care by the rest of us. Now, having said that, I still believe that the majority of people, if you have some illness, that to the extent possible, it is still your responsibility to, in the very first place, to have obtained insurance or some means by which you can care for yourself. Because if you rely upon the government to take care of you, the government inherently cannot be compassionate. But let's go back to this whole idea that conservatives, because we believe in the individual over the collective, because we believe that the government inherently cannot be compassionate. Sure, individual bureaucrats can be compassionate, but they're restricted by rules and regulations that say you must do X, Y, Z, and you can't do A, B, and C because that's outside the rules. That kind of stuff drives me nuts. Well, it appears that Marianne Williamson, who is running for president on the Democrat ticket, she is what I would consider to be the most soft-spoken. She's a hardcore lefty. She admits that herself. But she's probably the most soft-spoken and, to a certain extent, probably the most kind individual running for president. I don't think she has a mean bone in her body. Now, somebody could start providing me examples of her writing or things that she has said somewhere that are mean and hateful, but I really don't believe so. I think she's just this kind of kind, misguided person that belongs in Sedona, Arizona, or Santa Fe, New Mexico, staring at the crystals and just taking in the sunsets and enjoying life. Well, Marianne Williamson was caught on a hot microphone. This is why my press secretary was right. Although in this case, I'm really glad we caught this hot mic take. My press secretary always said to me, even if they tell you the microphones are off, if you are sitting in a studio where there are microphones, or you are sitting in a television or other radio station and they have a microphone on you, you must always assume that microphone is on. And so never, ever, ever say anything that you would not want a producer, a tech person, somebody, a board op, anybody that's handling the sound of the microphone. Because they could tell you the microphone's off, and it's not. Anyway, this hot mic catches Marianne Williamson actually slamming liberals. Listen closely.
So last week I interviewed 2020 hopeful candidate Marianne Williamson. Just after the interview, while still on camera with a hot mic, this happened.
What does it say that Fox News is nicer to me than the lefties are?
I'm sorry?
What does it say that the conservatives are nicer to me?
It's a bizarre world, man.
It's such a bizarre world. You know, I'm such a lefty. I mean, I'm a serious lefty. But I understand why people on the right call them godless. I mean, it's like, I didn't think the left was as mean as the right. They are.
I didn't think the left was as mean as the right. They are. Well, we're not mean. And she actually points out that why is it that Fox News and those on the right treat me nicely? Because that's what we are. We believe if you are a true conservative, then you believe in the primacy of the individual and that every individual has worth. And what we want to do is we want to have a free market system with limited government that allows you as an individual to succeed as much as you desire. I want everybody to succeed to whatever level of success they aspire. And that means, you know, I have this funny habit. And I hope I can explain it in a way that you won't think that I'm being demeaning in any way. But as I travel around day to day, going through my routine, going to meetings, going to the studio, coming back to my home studio, whatever I might be doing, I look at what people are doing. One, because I'm always looking for a story. I'm always looking for something to talk about. But then I look at what people do. And by that I mean, what's the work that they're doing? I want to give you two examples. The first example is, I've probably said more than once, that I almost always fill my cars up with gas at a Sam's. It just happens to be that there is a Sam's gas station located at a Sam's just off C-470 in Quebec. So it's really convenient for me, both coming and going home, going downtown, whatever I might be doing. It's always convenient for me to pull off in that Sam's and to fill up with gas. And every time I do, those of you familiar with Sam's, and I do it because it's cheaper gas, but the other reason is it's convenient and I always get greeted nice. I shouldn't say always, but I usually and often get greeted by an elderly gentleman, a middle-aged woman. I'm trying to think of examples. There's been, it always seems to me that it's either a male or, well, obviously it's either a male or female, duh. Well, maybe not. Maybe they identify as something else. Maybe I should ask sometime. But it's either a man or a woman. The men tend to be older. The women at least appear to be younger. The women appear to be more middle-aged, say 45 to 55. And the men tend to look older. They tend to look 65 or older. But I watch them as I'm filling up my car. And they're watching where they work. They have a little office. Most of the times they're standing outside. Sometimes they're sweeping up, trash or something where someone's tossed something over to the trash can and it's missed. Or they're watching to see if anybody needs any help. And sometimes they just walk by and just say, "Hi, how are you today?" And I'm not really much of a conversationalist when I'm trying to fill up with gas and just, get on with whatever my day is. But I appreciate the fact that they just come by and just say, in a very unobtrusive manner, "Hi." And then I've watched them as people have had trouble with a credit card not working or any number of problems, and they walk over and they try to help in any way that they can. And as I watch them, I think, Sam's has been very good in who they have selected to hire to do this job. And then I start thinking about the job. It's a great job for a retiree. It's a great job for someone who is more than willing to deal with the public. And I've often thought to myself, that is if we go back to Dr. King's street sweeper speech, when he admonishes his congregation that if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper ever, so that as God in heaven watches you, or as you go to heaven, God can be proud that there was the best street sweeper ever. And I've thought, because I'm never going to retire, I always will hopefully be behind a microphone, giving a speech, working on a book, doing something. But that is meaningful work. And I know that some people that pull into that gas station probably look at those people down their nose. Well, shame on them. They are doing meaningful work. They are doing it well. They are doing it kindly. And if you're a conservative, you don't look down on that job. You look at them and you think to yourselves, 1, they're working. 2, they're staying active. And 3, they're doing a damn good job of it. I think about that kind of stuff all the time. On this past Sunday night, the family got together, and of course, the daughter and son-in-law live close to us, and our son and daughter-in-law live, 15, 20 miles away from us. So, of course, they wanted to pick someplace in between, so we ended up at a Red Robin hamburger place. That's fine. Not my favorite, but I'm more than happy to go. We had the worst service ever. Here's how bad it was. We sat down. It's a table of, let me count. Let's see. So there's 2, 4, 6 adults, 2 children. There's 8, and then a baby in a high chair. So a total of 9 people. And the server comes over and asks for our drinks, takes the drink order, comes back with the drinks, takes the food order. Now, I know it's a table of 9, and so that takes a little extra time, but not once. And the food took longer than I thought it should take to get the food out. Not once did anybody come back to offer to refill the drinks. And you know me, so I grabbed, my grandson was sitting next to me. I asked him if he wanted a refill. He did. My daughter-in-law did. I did. So I took the 3 glasses, put them in my 2 hands, and I stood and I walked around to the fountain and started filling the glasses on my own. And as I did, I happened to look just slightly over to my right where the hostess stand was, and the hostess and 2 servers stood and watched me as I did that. They were in their 20s, maximum, 25, maximum. And when I noticed that they were looking at me, I looked at them, and I just gave them the look like, seriously? They're not good street sweepers. They're not very good at all. And I took the 3 drinks back. And as I was leaving, I noticed that one of them got on their little headset. And I don't know whether they asked for a manager or what. But only then did somebody come from the back and come up to see if we needed refills. Now, I want to paint the picture entirely. This was at 5 o'clock on a Sunday evening. The restaurant was 20% full, and I'm being liberal. It was virtually empty. Instead of those 3 standing there and calling for, I think this is how too many young people have zero work ethic. Instead of coming over and saying, "Oh, we're so sorry, sir. May we help you here? Let us do that for you." No, let's just get our little headset and call somebody else, because that's not our responsibility. And I thought, they really aren't good street sweepers. That's an example of somebody who is just there. It's almost like Peter Sellers in the movie Being There, if you haven't seen it. They really weren't doing anything. They weren't thinking for themselves. That's not who conservatives are. Conservatives, while we despise the government trying to be compassionate and trying to be a caretaker or a caregiver, we want to do that. We know intuitively, inherently, and we know that it is an absolute truth that you and I, acting on our own volition to help somebody else, is more effective. Whether we do that help directly or through a charitable organization is much more effective than the government ever can be. Conservatives are, in my opinion, naturally more compassionate. Liberals, as Marianne Williamson is finding out, are really all about, well, if it makes us feel good. But we really don't want to do it ourselves. And I think the absolute worst in that situation are those who are actors, Hollywood, politicians, anybody that comes from an artistic point of view. Case in point, John Legend, the singer, who in this soundbite points out that,
well, we've always been liberal. Musicians, actors, it's almost by disposition. We deal with the gay and lesbian community all the time, so we're going to feel like they should have the right to get married, just like we do. We deal with people of all colors and all races, and we travel to different countries all the time to perform. So we're going to have a more global view and a more inclusive view. It's almost by nature and by circumstance of the things that we do.
Let's just pause it a moment. You know, in my business, I deal with LGBT people all the time. People in radio, people in television, groups that I speak to, friends that I have. That's not the exclusive territory of actors or singers or anybody else. Nor is it because you travel the world that you are inherently more inclusive. Do you think that when John Legend travels to, I don't know, let's just pick some random place, Jakarta. If John Legend goes to Indonesia to perform a concert, do you think he actually gets out among the people, or do you think he stays in the penthouse suite of the Marriott or the Four Seasons or whatever it might be, the Ritz-Carlton? And when he leaves, do you think he just walks around the streets on his own? No. If he does walk around on the streets, he has bodyguards with them. They live in a fake bubble that's a fake reality. But I also think, let's let him finish.
So if America doesn't want to consume the art of people who are liberal-minded, there's not going to be a lot of art for them to consume. As simple as that.
You know, I consume liberal art all the time. Movies, music. I just don't want them to impose on their art their political philosophy. I want to enjoy their art for the sake of their art. I think about a lot of the people whose music I absolutely love and whose politics I despise. So I try to bifurcate those. I try to separate them. I try to be a little schizophrenic. Okay, so I like Neil Young. Neil Young is a radical lefty. So I tried to avoid, and oftentimes in his songs now, he's gotten political in his songs. I find those songs not very enjoyable. I also believe that those in Hollywood, artists, musicians, and others, I use that Hollywood as a big tent. I think because they live in this imaginary world most of the time. When they're on the set and they're acting, or when they're on the stage and they're performing, that's not reality in the sense of it's It's an escape. It's an escape for both the artist who gets into the music or the performance or whatever they're doing, and it's escape for those who are consuming it. It's not the real world. If it was the real world, oh my gosh, do you think that they would continue to put out movies that absolutely glorify gun violence? No, they wouldn't. Because to them, it's all make-believe.
Because the best artists, most of them are liberal. Sorry. There are some country artists that I know that are conservative. I have a lot of country artists that are friends. And believe me, some of them are liberal, but they don't make a big deal out of it because they know it'll alienate their base. I'm telling you, most creative people are liberal.
Wait a minute. I know country singers who are liberal, but they try to conceal it because they know their audience won't like it. Then why is it that liberal performers throw it in our face when they know that we won't like it? This is the cognitive dissonance of the left. In politics, in culture, in life, everywhere. And poor old Marianne Williamson, as kind and naive as she may be, is discovering that, oh yeah, my side of the aisle is kind of mean. I'll be right back. Well, Chick-fil-A's back in the news. Administrators at Purdue University are pushing back against really strong pressure by the faculty to cancel plans to build a Chick-fil-A restaurant on campus. This is the absurdity of the world that we now live in. Student and faculty protesters all around the country have been fighting for, several years now, against Chick-fil-A's expansion onto campuses and even into airports. I mean, oh my gosh, you can't have a Chick-fil-A at an airport. And why is it? Here's what I find fascinating about the pushback about Chick-fil-A. Because the fast food restaurant operates on Christian values. Now, what do Christian values mean? Well, every time that I've been to a Chick-fil-A, polite, friendly, helpful, smile on their face. And more importantly, if you recall the video of the one guy that when this controversy broke out a couple of years ago, he went through Chick-fil-A and just berated this young woman in the drive-through window because, according to the dipwad in the car, Chick-fil-A hates gay people. Chick-fil-A doesn't hate gay people. Chick-fil-A, both as a corporation and as individual store owners, I don't think any of them hate gay people. They may not approve of the lifestyle, but they don't hate the individual. And even if the owners did hate gay people, they're certainly not going to refuse to serve them. What is Chick-fil-A's objective? Chick-fil-A's objective is to make as much money selling chicken nuggets and chicken sandwiches and salads and drinks and anything else they sell as much as they can. They accept anybody. Back to Purdue. Purdue released a statement this past Friday revealing that students have long requested that the university bring Chick-fil-A to campus. The statement notes that the Chick-fil-A franchise, the franchisee, is actually a female Purdue graduate. She was asked to sign a statement of, quote, equal access and treatment in exchange for permission to sell Chick-fil-A food on campus. I'm always fascinated by this because it is this kind of schizophrenic attitude that we have that says, oh, you've got to provide equal access and treatment. Okay, because you know what we don't do? We don't look at somebody when they come in and judge them. Well, we think you look gay. We think you look like a lesbian. Or we think you look like a, I don't know. Do they think if a Sikh walks in with the turban on their head, oh, you must be Al-Qaeda. We're not going to serve you. That drives me nuts, absolutely nuts. Chick-fil-A doesn't do that. And in fact, you've probably heard the story about the one Chick-fil-A franchise that kept finding somebody digging in their trash and finally went out, confronted them, and said, please don't dig in our trash. Instead, come in and let us feed you. And they did. Breitbart News reported last week that a group of faculty members at Purdue were pressuring the administration into canceling the proposal to bring Chick-fil-A to campus. One student argued that Chick-fil-A would significantly harm the well-being of LGBT students on campus. Let me just say that one student has been indoctrinated to the point of just being a total and complete and unequivocally a dumbass. Ignorant, stupid, and a dumbass. It's mind-boggling to me that we have reached the stage where we politicize chicken sandwiches. Stop it. Just stop it. We might as well call this episode of the Michael Brown Unplugged podcast the Cognitive Dissonance episode. Elizabeth Warren tweeted out Monday. This was Monday. I'm trying to look at the date here. Monday at 5 a.m., Elizabeth Warren tweeted out that, quote, in 2019, just 17% of Americans trusted government to do the right thing. Why, she asks. In the tweet, she says, because our government works great for the wealthy and well-connected, but not for everyone else. That's corruption, plain and simple. And I've got a plan to fight back. And then she has, at her website, I don't care if you look, elizabethwarren.com, because she has a plan for everything. I think she has a plan for constipation. She has a plan for diarrhea. She has a plan for, gas. She's got plans for everything. This is a plan, according to her website, to end Washington corruption. But her plan is for the government to take over everything. Now, she just said we don't trust the government. She's a genius. We don't trust the government. So how exactly does enabling the government to take over, healthcare, finances, guns, if we don't trust the government to do the right thing, why should we trust the government, Senator Warren, to do all of the things that you now want the government to do for us? Explain to me how taking away private insurance and turning that over to the government puts power back in my hands. Explain to me how taking away my guns and my ability to defend myself and giving that over to the government, which would be the local cops, who might be, 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 minutes away, how does that help me protect myself in my own home or my own business? Guess what? It doesn't. All that your plan does is implement socialism, and all socialism does is give all of the power to the government. Now, I don't know how long, and I'm not going to look, I don't care how long you've been a U.S. Senator, however long it's been, it's too long. And however long you taught law school was a waste of the tuition that those law students paid. Remember, she says that a poll says just 17% of Americans trust the government to do the right thing. I would have to agree with her. We don't trust the government. So if we don't trust the government, why would we trust her plan to turn everything over to the government? Like I said, cognitive dissonance. Oh, man. I love the left. I really do. It makes my job way too easy. Hang on, I'll be right back. I know this is an audio podcast and there's no way to show you this video, but there's a video circulating. It's been tweeted out by Fox 5 DC. It's the Fox station in Washington, D.C. For those of you who are familiar with the Washington metro system, the subway system, it is, because it is heavily subsidized by the taxpayers, one of the cleanest and most safest subways, I think, in the world, outside places in Japan, which are just immaculate. But as I watched the particular video, here's what Fox 5 has tweeted out. Metro Transit PD, that's the police department for the Transit Authority in Washington, confirms that 4 minors have been arrested and are being held after a victim says they randomly attacked and pushed him onto the tracks at the Navy Yard last Friday. And, of course, then they promote their story. Hear their story tonight on Fox 5 DC. I've watched the video numerous times, and I've watched it several times because there are 2 things that bug me. One, I'm headed to Washington, D.C. next week. You'll still get the podcast, you'll still get the radio program, but I'm going to a radio row of Federations of Americans for Immigration Reform. I've been several years, and they've invited me back, and so I'm going again. I generally use the Metro while I'm there. I don't have a security detail anymore. No, I got to be like the plebes. I got to go down and use the subway. I know the subway really well. The Navy Yard actually used to be a subway stop that I would avoid. It's on the Green Line, and it's just not exactly a safe place, but it has really changed over the years. In fact, the Navy Yard is an area where Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lives now, where she bitches about the rents because they're really nice condos and apartments there. Not the slums and the ghetto that it used to be. So I'm watching this video, and these youth randomly, in the DC Metro, you stand, obviously, like you would in any subway. You stand along the edge, and in DC they have these rubberized, it's about a foot wide, a rubberized mat that runs along so that people, well, it doesn't make any difference whether you are handicapped with eyesight or not. You're able to feel, even if you have complete eyesight, you're able to feel where the edge of the station is, of the platform. And then the lights flash. They have lights embedded in the platform that begin to flash as the train is approaching. So you have a tactile and a visual indication of where you are. It's really a good system. These thugs randomly walk up to a guy in a white shirt, could be me, right? White shirt and blue jeans, and began to push, punch, struggle, and actually push him onto the tracks. Now, of course, the tracks are dangerous because part of the tracks are electrified, so the individual could have been electrocuted. 2, depending upon the timing of the train, could have been hit by the train. But 3, he was defenseless. And that's what drives me battiest the most. Oh, yeah, Washington, D.C., where if you want to apply for a concealed carry permit, you might get one in 5 or 10 years if you're lucky. And then 2, and this is a big-ass assumption on my part, but my guess is the Metro is a gun-free zone. Here's what bugs me. As I watch the video, this is a classic example where an individual would have a fear for imminent danger to his life. He is being pushed onto the tracks, could be hit by an oncoming subway train, and he is one person against 4 thugs. As I look, there are at least 2 what appear to be female bystanders standing by helpless. I don't want to be that guy. And I don't want that guy to be that guy. I think that people need to learn, if it's a gun, that's fine. If it's a knife, that's fine. If it's karate, some sort of martial arts, that's fine. But people need to learn 2 things, situational awareness and self-defense. If this person had been, I'm curious, I'm going to back the video up and look again. Because I'm just curious, if the individual, no, I take it back. He never had a chance. The guy was just walking along, and they attack from both sides. He never had a chance. But even after they push him onto the tracks, one of the thugs jumps onto the tracks. If he'd had a weapon, he could have pulled the weapon, and he could have at least, and some lawyers might argue with me about this, he could, although we have case law now that supports this, he could have brandished his weapon and scared them off, or in the case of the two that jump onto the tracks as he's on the tracks, he could have fired his weapon to defend himself. But he was left defenseless, and then the thugs run away. Now, they've been identified, and they'll be arrested. They're probably juveniles. They'll probably get some sort of probation or something. Am I arguing that one of them could have or should have lost their life? Yes, I am. They put that individual in imminent danger of his own life, and that is the very essence of the right of self-defense. I wish I could show you the video, because I think if you saw it and you saw how helpless and defenseless this individual was, as others stood and watched, you might change your mind about learning some form of self-defense. Thanks for listening to this episode of Michael Brown Unplugged. I know you all turn it off right now, so I'll just say it very quickly. Follow me on social media. Do that by going to michaelbrowntoday.com. Join me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever else it is. Remember, you can get both this podcast and the radio podcast on both iTunes and on the iHeartRadio app. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow.